All right. Welcome back to the channel. Bob Arum. You know, it's Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury fight week. So there's going to be a lot of talk about that in boxing channels all around the internet. You know, it's just that's what it is, man. We got a big fight and I'm grateful that we have a big fight. So we're going to talk a little bit about some promoters talking smack. Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum gets on Eddie Hearn for some things he says about Tyson Fury. And then Eddie Hearn gets on Tyson Fury, and both of them are like monster hypocrites in doing it. And I love it when I can criticize both Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn all in the same go. So let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Man, hypocrisy is flying around everywhere. Bob Arum gets on Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn gets on Tyson Fury. Bob Arum gets on Eddie Hearn for something Bob Arum does on a regular basis himself, and Eddie Hearn gets on Tyson Fury for something that Eddie Hearn just did with Anthony Joshua back to back. So let's go through that, man. But first, you know, the word hypocrisy, let's define it. It is to do one thing, say one thing and do another, right? Say that you have a standard that people should meet, and then you fail to meet that standard for the same reason that you accuse other people of having failed to meet that standard. So in the case of Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn, let's start with Big Bob Arum, one of the greatest figures in boxing. And I mean that in the Voldemort. I don't know, you guys are probably not Harry Potter fans, but there was this line in these Harry Potter books and movies where it said that the owner of this wand has done great and terrible things. Great, terrible, but great. Done great things. Terrible, but great. Right. So great, talking about just the fact that you're very well known, that what you do has a very broad and significant effect. And I think that is more than fair enough to say about Bob Arum being the promoter that he's been for the last 50 years. And all the fighters that he's signed and brought through the sport of boxing, man. The dude has just a ton of Hall of Fame fighters come through his organization. And he himself is probably one of the longest active and most influential promoters to ever do it, along with Don King and what's the other guy, and Tex Rickard back in the 1930s with Jack Dempsey. He also was promoting fights with Joe Gans, and I think he also was Joe Gans and John L. Sullivan. It might have been John L. Sullivan and Joe Gans, but he was doing big fights even before Jack Dempsey. But he was the main guy, you know, leading up into that period, leading up into the, you know, from the early 1910s to the 1930s. He was the big time promoter. I think that it's very fair to say that both Bob Arum and Don King are right there with him, and Bob Arum continues to do his thing. I think Don King continues to do his same thing, but his role and his model has kind of morphed itself into something else, because I do believe there's a relationship between him, Al Heyman, and the PBC. But I just wanted to give Bob Arum that credit. But Bob Arum said about Eddie Hearn, who is now a predominant promoter, that he's spreading false rumors on Tyson Fury. Now, what did Eddie Hearn say? What did Eddie Hearn say? Eddie Hearn said that he had heard rumors. He said, I want Tyson Fury to win. Now, I said something about that in an earlier video. I want Tyson Fury to win. Why do these guys like Vladimir Klitschko and Eddie Hearn feel the necessity to say they want Tyson Fury to win? What, so they make sure that they're on that same side? They don't piss off the fan base? They don't piss off their fan base? So, hey, even though I'm predicting that he's going to lose, or there's a chance he's going to lose, I just want you to know that I really am riding with him. So Eddie Hearn says, I'm really riding with him. But, you know, I've heard some things about in the gym, and so that I'm predicting Deontay Wilder by knockout because of some things he heard in the gym. Bob Arum takes offense to that and says, who does Eddie Hearn know that could tell him anything about what's going on in the gym? I got my guys in the gym. When I'm not in the gym, and I leave, somebody else is still there in the gym watching it. I would know if anything was going on. There's nothing going on with Tyson Fury. Who does Eddie Hearn know? I think he talks about the guy that's sweeping out the gym. Now, all that could be very well and good, man. All that could be very well and good and true. But I could have sworn that I just heard Bob Arum do the same thing to Errol Spence Jr. and said that, hey man, I've got good, valid inside sources that Errol Spence Jr. is much more severely hurt than what he's leading on. Then, a week later, Errol Spence Jr. comes out and says and gives his talk interview to, I think it was Brian Kennedy on Fox on the undercard of the maybe it was Jermell Charlo Tony Harrison. It was probably the Jermell Charlo Tony Harrison fight that he comes out and said that that's not true. But why should we believe that Bob Arum has some super inside source on Errol Spence Jr. when you have people who like Herring, who used to come out, who was from Dallas, used to come out and walk Errol Spence Jr. out to the ring early in his career. I think he might have walked him out for his first professional fight, if I do recall that highlight correctly. You have guys like from the WBC, Mauricio Suleiman, saying that they received the medical reports from Errol Spence Jr. that said there was no broken bones, no type of major issue that should prevent him from fighting. So that's why they didn't put him into the WBC champion in recess situation like they did with Devin Haney, right? You've got people, I spoke with people in his family, close members to him in his family, that says, yeah, he's back training. What's the big deal? There's nothing wrong with him. He can train. That's his job. He's supposed to go do that. So his trainer, Derek James, said the same thing, that, hey man, the dude's back in training. There's nothing that I see that looks any different. But somehow Bob Arum knew, right, what nobody else knew, and felt perfectly fine spreading it around to other people to draw doubt into the future, to put doubt on in people's mind as to the future of Errol Spence Jr. So by my definition, or my understanding of the definition of hypocrisy, that would be Bob Arum being a very, very big hypocrite by pointing out that Eddie Hearn did the same thing to him that Bob Arum, did to Errol Spence Jr. But like I said, this video, I get to spread it around because Eddie Hearn turned around and did the same thing to Tyson Fury and said that Tyson Fury has abandoned the UK, and that a fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, if Tyson Fury were to beat Deontay Wilder, could not happen in the UK, and blames Tyson Fury for abandoning it. I could have sworn that Anthony Joshua had signed an agreement with Wembley, and he referred to himself as the fourth horseman. I don't know what that means exactly, but I think it has something to do with the soccer team or the football team. They call soccer football in Europe, the soccer/football team that plays at Wembley, whichever one that is, and refer to himself as an extra horseman. And then he fought Alexander Povetkin. It didn't sell out. And then his next two fights were in New York City and Saudi Arabia. And if, for some strange reason, which I don't predict happening, because even if Deontay Wilder didn't win the fight, Deontay Wilder still has a rematch clause. He's got to fight him. So either he's going to fight Tyson, but just say Anthony Joshua fights Tyson Fury next. Eddie Hearn just said that the fight can't be in the UK. It's going to have to be somewhere else. Eddie Hearn just talked. So Eddie Hearn accuses somebody, this is the hypocrisy, let me be clear with it, that Tyson Fury, who went to the United States to fight in LA, Las Vegas, right? LA, Las Vegas, Las Vegas, Las Vegas. I think this might be the third fight that Tyson Fury has had in Las Vegas. It'll be the third fight that he's had in Las Vegas that he abandoned the UK. But Anthony Joshua, who said himself that that he doesn't see any reason to not fight in the UK because the fans were so loyal to him, that he goes and fights in New York City, Saudi Arabia, and more than likely somewhere else outside the United States. And Eddie Hearn himself said that there's more money outside in the UK. It's not that they don't want to fight in the UK, but there's just so much money being offered by Saudi Arabia and Vegas that, that's more than likely where the big fights are going to happen. Well, why would Tyson Fury be turning his back on the UK, but Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn are not? Sounds like a good bit of hypocrisy, doesn't it? But as we all know, and back to the beginning of, these guys are promoters, and you have to take what a promoter says with a grain of salt, no matter what it is. If they say the sun is shining outside, just open your window, stick your head out, and double check, okay? If they tell you that water's wet, stick your finger in it and check for yourself and make sure that, pour some on your shirt and see if your shirt gets wet. I don't take what any of those dudes say at face value, which is the reason why I like Al Heyman, because I never have to take anything he says at face value because I ain't never heard the man say anything. And I think that is the best way to go about promoting. Do your job, but do not be heard. But anyway, it is what it is. I just thought that was a fun one to talk about. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you guys for all your support on the Patreon as a channel member and the live streams that we do, and also these videos. Because if you've watched this video to the end, thank you very much. You are a most valued subscriber and member of the channel. With that, I'm out. Peace.